Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA Show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA Show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen. I do all kinds of mystical things with microphones. Chief among them, I'm a professional ring announcer and MMA cage announcer. I'm joined, as I always am, by my two friends, MMA pundits who bring punditry to new heights. First up, we got joining us from New Rochelle, Mark Prio. Mark, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. What's happening? I just got back from a little family vacation in Lake George, so
Nice.
Ready to switch my brain back into MMA here.
Bro, you're rocking that pride hat, and I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I'm on a hat run right now. But yeah, I this is my new favorite hat in the rotation.
Nice. And joining us from the Sunshine State of Florida, Omar Artola. Omar, what's going on, bro?
Oh, another day in the life. As you guys can see, my heavy bag is broken now.
Oh no.
Oh, what happened? Yeah. Did you hit it really hard?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if I should be impressed with myself or disappointed in the heavy bag. Haven't figured that part out yet. But the bag itself is fine. I think I just need to screw it back into the top.
How long have you had it?
About a year or so. I didn't really start using it until I moved down to Florida because I didn't really have a ton of space.
Okay.
I feel comfortable chalking that up to you. Too much power.
I threw a solid left hook and that thing just came right down. It's like, oh, cool, man.
All right. Well, the rundown for this week's show, of course, as we always do, we're going to start with On the Marquee, our first segment. Then we're going to jump to last Friday's PFL playoffs. And then we're going to talk about some of the other fights from last Friday's Bellator and PFL. No pre rankings this week because there was no UFC. We're going to talk about that a little more. Then we're going to preview the main event of Bellator 265 coming up this weekend. And then we're also going to preview UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Gastelum. And then we're going to end with something special, a new segment, which we will name when we get there. But gentlemen, let's jump right into our first segment. This is On the Marquee. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Gegard Mousasi. Mousasi, who last Friday night at Bellator 264 defeated John Salter by TKO at 2 minutes and 7 seconds of round number 3. In doing so, retaining his Bellator middleweight championship. Omar, I'm going to start with you this week. Let me get your reaction to Mousasi's middleweight title defense. What'd you make of his performance?
I thought it was kind of fantastic. Honestly, Mousasi's one of those guys that you can never really count out. The first round was a little weird, right? Because he spent a lot of time on the ground and he was able to get taken down. If you listen to him in his post-fight interviews, like, I could have gone back up, but like,
yeah.
But for what?
Can you give it to me in a little bit of your Mousasi voice?
I could have gone back up. Why? I knew I was stronger. So in true Gegard form, he gave the round away. Let this guy think he was doing something when apparently he wasn't. And Gegard put it on him in round 2 until round 3 he snapped. You know what I mean? And that guy was basically done. So put another body on Gegard Mousasi's count, and we get Mr. PVZ up next.
Yeah, man. Mark, let me jump to you real first before we get to Mr. PVZ. What's your reaction of Mousasi? He's been around for a minute. He has fought everywhere. He still looks like he's like 30 years old, but his record now improves to 48-7. That's I can't believe he has that many wins before he's gotten to double-digit losses. But let me get your reaction to Mousasi's title defense.
Yeah, 50 wins before double-digit losses would be pretty cool. But yeah, I can't remember if we said this last week or not, but he has to be one of the most underappreciated fighters when it comes to like all-time rankings, because he is up there, man. And I feel like no one talks about it. The guy's unreal. But this was a fight where he truly shined and got to show how good he is. He's such an easy guy to root for because he really like doesn't have a weakness. He doesn't have anywhere where he's ever in trouble. Whereas like you know, like say you're rooting for like a Connor or a Nate, and they're like fighting a wrestler. Like as soon as they get taken down, you're like, shit, like where do we go from here? With Gegard, like there's not a position that he's in where you're not like, oh, it's all right. Gegard got this. Like he'll figure this out.
For
like
sure.
he's so good everywhere it goes. So it's so fun to root for him. But yeah, like Omar said, he did say a little more than that about why he didn't get up. He was like, we were both so dry, and I know that like his only game is to try to catch a submission, that I was like, I'll just wait here rather than try to force a get up and leave myself exposed, and I'll just put it on him in round 2, which is exactly what he did, and it's smart, and that's the kind of fighter he is. He's a calculating guy. But yeah, he just stayed completely calm, nullified everything Salter was trying to do on the ground, and then walked him down. He walked him down the entire fight. Every time they were on the feet, he absolutely walked him down. He never stopped moving forward, never stopped throwing strikes. And you could tell that Salter, come round 3, was already tired.
Yeah.
Simply from how good Gegard was defensively on the ground, making Salter work, and from the constant walk downs. And that was it. He tired him out. He was able to show off his own grappling and his own strength. He's an underratedly strong guy, and you could see that when he got on top. Like Salter was immobile; he wasn't going anywhere. And another dominant display. It had to be intimidating for the guys who are thinking of fighting Gegard, because he really he was unfazed by anything that happened in that fight. Just systematically took Salter apart.
Yeah, I was so impressed watching him. I mean, as I always am, at just how poised he is, how calm he's in there, which you mentioned. But from the get-go, I thought Salter was doing his best in the opening moments of that fight, and probably the first round into the second round. You know, Salter was doing his best, working for takedowns, trying to get into the clinch at every opportunity that he could.
Yep.
But I really thought that by the end of the second round, Mousasi was really in control of that fight.
Yeah, I think that's really the difference, though, in the levels, right? Is like that was the game that we all knew Salter was going to bring. That was the only real path of victory that he had. Gegard Mousasi has multiple paths of victory. He was. I mean, to be fair, it really wasn't a fair matchup when you really think about it. When you really come down to it, you know, the rankings are the way that they are in Bellator, and you deal with it the way you got to deal with it. But at the end of the day, that was night and day of experience, technique, everything. Every checkbox you want to put up, Gegard had it in the bag. You know what I mean? Regardless of that takedown and the control that people might assume that was there, Gegard at no point was in trouble in that fight. And I always feel bad for those dudes that are basically just in that fight just to lose.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from Salter, because he really had a great run coming up to that fight. But prior to that fight, I saw in a couple different places him ranked like around 20th in the world, and I was like, damn, that's pretty good. Like he's legit. But after seeing that fight, I'm like, shit, I don't know about that one, because he did not look like he had that much business in there.
Yeah. Omar, let me go back to you. You already invoked Mr. PVZ, and as we know that Gegard's next opponent has already been announced. Mr. PVZ, of course, the spouse of the famous Paige Van Zandt, Austin Vanderford, who is going to be Gegard Mousasi's next opponent, challenging for the middleweight belt there. So, what do you make of this new announcement?
I mean, like I said, the rankings are what they are in Bellator. You know, you gotta work with what you got. I personally think the matchup is fun for a couple different reasons. One, it pisses Mark off. There's just always going to be a little genuine joy there. It's just kind of funny. Two, there is an opportunity for somebody who is probably not getting any kind of credit for winning this fight or putting any kind of competitiveness towards this fight. I'm pretty sure everybody thinks that Vanderford is just, you know, another cone to be steamrolled through, which, you know, to be fair, this is not like a random thought. There's evidence to suggest that this is probably going to happen, right? But there is an opportunity for somebody to step up to the plate, to rise to the occasion, and to make some crazy shit happen. And you know me, that's what I'm here for. That's the whole reason I watch MMA, is because crazy shit can happen at any point, in any fight, at any time. And if you blink, you're going to miss it. So while on paper, I'm not super impressed with the fight, I think there's an opportunity for something cool to happen.
Mark, Omar invoked your name in mentioning Vanderford. I'm going to give you a chance to sort of defend yourself. Why does this matchup, does it piss you off, and why does it?
No, so I wouldn't say it pisses me off, because I understand that Gegard is the middleweight champion, and there is not really anyone in the middleweight division that is exciting, and he has to defend against somebody. So here we are. I guess it's Vanderford. Right. I wish they would try harder to present other opportunities for Gegard to fight some different people, which I guess I'll get to in a second. But in terms of this fight, it's so tough to evaluate guys who get into title fights like in this type of way. Like Vanderford hasn't fought anyone who is anyone other than maybe Fabian Edwards, who's still unproven himself. So it's like, I have no idea what this guy is. I don't know what he possibly brings to the table that's any more concerning than what Salter just brought. It kind of feels like it's an easy night at the office for Gegard. One reason I do kind of hate it is because it's another risk of Gegard like being bored, as we mentioned last week, that sometimes he'll just be like, I don't like couldn't you see that? Like him being like, why do I have to fight this guy? Like, this is stupid. Like, and then he fights down to their level. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it will be a banger. I hope it will be a banger, but it feels like an easy night at the office for Gegard.
Omar, do you feel like Vanderford is sort of capitalizing a little bit on that? Isn't that Paige Van Zandt's spouse guy?
I mean, to be fair, he'd be dumb if he didn't.
But I'm asking, do you think that's part of this matchmaking process? That sort of, because he has sort of a little bit of that elevated star because of his spouse.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. He makes himself well known along with Paige. Paige has her following, and she takes a lot of the pictures, and she has like her fan site and stuff. But Austin does a lot of the stuff with her. They are very much partners in that respect as well. I kind of really like them as a couple, to be honest. They feed off of each other very nicely. They're work fun. Off of each other very nicely.
They dance together a lot. It's fun.
Yeah. Regardless of how you feel about them and like what they do in their relationship, I think the relationship as a whole is pretty damn cool. So I think he definitely plays off of it. I don't think he takes advantage of it in that sense, or takes advantage of her. But the situation is what it is, and he uses it to his advantage. So I think that there's kudos to him. At the same time, like it's not going to matter once you're in there with him, right? Like Mousasi's going to beat the shit out of you regardless.
Sure, he is kind of like Mousasi is like a hitman.
Yeah,
he's just a stone cold, doesn't care.
Yeah.
Look at his face. He is ice cold. He is ice cold.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Mousasi, Mark, let's send it back to you here. Talking about Gegard again, the title holder. He's a big star in the sport. He's a big name. If you were in charge at Bellator, what would you want to do with Mousasi next? I mean, next, assuming he gets past Vanderford.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Is exactly what you just said. He's a big name, and kind of circling back to points I made on AJ McKee a few weeks back. I mean, he's not the current star that AJ McKee has kind of exploded into being, but on a similar note, Bellator has to step up and capitalize on the stars they do have, because there's not a ton of them. Like, this is not, say, like Sergio Pettis, who's kind of bounced around and lost some guys, beat some guys. We've seen him go either way, and now he happens to be their bantamweight champ. Like, I get it. It's a little hard to be like, everyone come see Sergio Pettis. He's friggin' incredible, because we've seen him go, either way. This is Gegard Mousasi. He is a easy top 10 all-time middleweight, probably higher than that. I'd have to think about it. He's a current, as we said, top 3 or 4 middleweight in the world. Like, they should be marketing Gegard as if he's arguably the best middleweight in the world. Like, that's the kind of treatment he should be getting. And I don't feel like they try to create enough fights that give him that kind of buzz. I know they had Lima come up and Rory come up, which I get. Maybe those were their attempts to do that, but that's also smaller guys coming up to fight Gegard. Like, to me, as soon as Romero signed with Bellator, I would have thrown money at Yoel Romero and been like, you fight. You don't want to cut to middleweight anymore? How about I double your money and you cut to middleweight and you fight Gegard? Because then if Gegard beats Yoel Romero, who everyone knows, everyone was super excited about that signing in Bellator. Gegard's star jumps like in the more casual fans' minds immediately to a place it should probably already be at.
Yeah.
So I would love to see fights like that. I would love to see them take the winner of the light heavyweight tournament happening right now and match him against Gegard when it's all said and done. Really, I would have loved to see Gegard in that tournament, but I guess that didn't seem to work out timing wise. But to see him go up against whoever wins that tournament, him move up and wait and do that, I just, and if he loses, he loses. But I just want to see them taking advantage of the fact that this guy is still here after all this time and still this good, and let's put him in fights that are worth it. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is also Mousasi's second title reign at Bellator with the middleweight strap.
Yeah.
That being said, let's move on now. Once again, congrats to Gegard Mousasi for being on the marquee. Gegard, enjoy your week up on the marquee.
Thank you, Michael.
I also we discovered tonight that Omar has one of the best impressions of Gegard Mousasi that I've ever heard. I would listen to you like read the dictionary as Gegard Mousasi. Okay, so last Friday there was also another MMA card, PFL 7, their playoffs, and Ray Cooper III defeated Rory MacDonald via unanimous decision, earning a 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards. Mark, let me start with you. What did you make of the performance of Ray Cooper III getting a win, a huge win over a huge name in Rory MacDonald?
Yeah, it was not the way that I thought he would get it done if he got it done. Was not expecting the wrestle heavy action that we got. I guess he kind of played into what he had, because Rory seemed to come out with this game plan where maybe he thought he was going to be able to kind of lean on the wrestling and dictate that. And then once they were in those types of positions, Cooper was just probably felt stronger, as he proved to be, and was like, all right, like, let me just take this down, and then realized how good it was working. Because it wasn't him that initiated it at first, but I think once you find the success that he found in round 1, he was like, all right, let me just do more of this. And got it done pretty easy. He controlled Rory the whole time. I mean, he didn't necessarily have Rory hurt or anything like that, but he threatened a couple times with subs, and he really looked like clearly the better fighter, which is not something that I was expecting in that fight. Not that I didn't think Cooper could win, but I didn't think that it would be like Rory looking that bad. He looked really tentative again, like he has been looking. I'm not sure what his game plan was. Like, I get it if it was wrestling, but you would think as soon as round 1 ended and Rory spent however many minutes on the fence trying to muscle Cooper to the ground and failing, and then got put on the ground himself, that he might be like, all right, I'm not sure that angle's working. Maybe let's try like some range striking, since I kind of have more weapons in that department. And he just
like 4 inches on him or some crazy nonsense.
And he just, it seemed like he had no plan B. He just, I don't know. he did not look great. And I get it that Cooper is a tough stylistic matchup, like just because of how strong and powerful he is. But on the same note, he doesn't really have a resume that speaks to him being like, say, like a top 30 welterweight in the world. Like he hasn't really hit this top level. So for someone like that to kind of just handle Rory doesn't really look great for where Rory's at right now.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought Rory would have been able to hurt him more, but Cooper, I mean, like you said, he just looked so strong, using a grappling heavy offense against Rory. And yeah, Rory just seemed tentative. He didn't seem like he could pull the trigger like he has in the past. I don't know, man. Rory
he does this weird like backup shell thing. Like he doesn't look like someone who wants to be there.
I mean, Rory got into MMA at the professional level at a really young age. He's been around a long time. There's got to be a lot of miles on that body, man. And he also has obviously been in some wars, some of the most famous wars in the sport. Yeah. Omar, where do you think Rory MacDonald goes from here?
That's really the tough question, right? That was one of those performances where you kind of wonder, should he still even be at this level? Which is kind of messed up, right? Because it's not like he hasn't had some recent performances that were exceptional, right? Even after leaving the UFC, he's had some decent performances, but he's had, I feel like, a few more rough ones than he has had good ones. And just like Mark was saying, this one was really bad. This one, he was literally controlled, I think, for the majority of the fight, or at least didn't have any control for almost the entire fight. Was struggling for it, was trying to fight for it, I guess, to a certain extent, but he wasn't pulling the trigger. Ray Cooper was able to get those takedowns. I don't know if I've ever seen Rory taken down so easily in his career, ever. I was struggling to think about another fight where he was just getting taken down and held down significantly. Maybe Douglas Lima, but even then, I don't even think it was like that. There was a lot more damage that was involved by the time we were taking down MacDonald in that fight. Damage to the leg and so on. But Ray Cooper was able to just completely dominate him, and it really had me thinking like what is Rory even in there for right now? Like what is the end goal here? Because he's not fighting like somebody who's trying to win $1 million. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. Like if I was trying to win $1 million, whether I had skill or not, you're gonna see me throwing some shit.
Yeah.
Like, and for 3 rounds, also PFL 3 rounds main event. That was weird for me. Just sidebar.
I thought the same thing, but I guess because it's the semifinals of the tournament, you got to keep it all the same, that they're 3 rounds and you do 5 when you get to the finals.
Yeah, I guess I was expecting, by the time I got to the 3rd round, I was expecting more, and I didn't even realize that we were done with that fight. But I mean, what was going to change with 2 more rounds? It would have been 2 more rounds of Ray Cooper basically taking him down and controlling him. I mean, MacDonald showed nothing in that fight to let us think that, he wants to be in there. I don't even want to say that he has anything left. MacDonald is a fantastic fighter. He's proven himself. I don't think he really needs to prove shit to anybody else at this point ever. Yeah. I just don't know if he really wants to do this anymore. I think he does it because he loves the training. I'm sure he loves that lifestyle, I guess, to a certain extent, but I don't know if he actually loves the fighting itself.
Well, also, it's what he does. He's a professional fighter. I mean, what else is he going to do? He's only, how old is Rory MacDonald? Is he like 30 something? He hasn't made 32. He's 32. Yeah. But even still, I mean, what else is he going to? I don't know how much PFL is paying him. I don't know how much he made at Bellator or the UFC, but I imagine it's a lot more than, I don't know, anything else he's going to do with his life right now. He's only 32.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at GSP, though, GSP retired relatively young. That man was relatively smart with his money. Yeah. A lot of investments. He does that. Man doesn't need to do anything for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Yeah. But in terms of that, Mark, mentioning that Rory is only 32 years old, where do you see Rory go from here? He had a tenure at UFC. He went to Bellator for a little while. Now he has had a few fights under the PFL banner. Hasn't exactly been winning a lot lately. Where do you think MacDonald goes from here?
So it seems like Rory might be done at any kind of elite level. At least that's what the eye test tells you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where his head is at. I don't know. Like, it's possible that we don't see much of Rory anymore. It wouldn't shock me. But if he wants to keep going, then to me, like going into the next season of PFL, that doesn't do much for me because, I mean, unless his goal is the million, then if he thinks he can get it, then sure. But like, you're still going to be in there with names that aren't huge. Like, even if you win, it's not so buzzworthy, and it's going to kind of feel like, all right, well, you were supposed to win last year. If he goes back to Bellator, who does he fight? He's kind of fought most of those guys there. So to me, if he wants to keep going, what I would really love to see, and what I think would be the coolest thing, is a reunion with the UFC. Now, would the UFC even be interested in Rory at this point? That's another question. I have no idea. But I think a homecoming could be really cool, specifically because we can kind of accept that he's not on that elite level anymore. Like, how cool would it be for him to come back to the UFC and stand across from Robbie Lawler again and do a rematch, or stand across from like Cowboy Cerrone if he's still taking fights,
Totally.
something like that. Or even if you want to go like a younger guy like Nico Price, like some type of, Nico Price is not like a killer murder, but how fun would that fight be? Yeah. And on top of that, if he's looking to reignite his fire potentially, I feel like the place that could maybe do that the most for him is the UFC, just because everything for the most part does feel like it matters more in the UFC. It feels like it's the biggest stage.
Yeah.
Plus it's where he came from. He made his bones there. I think that'd be super fun. I would love to see it. Is Rory interested? Is the UFC interested? Possibly no on both sides. I have no idea.
Right.
But I think it'd be cool.
I mean, because of what he did in the UFC, he's always going to carry significant name recognition wherever he goes. So yeah, if it's not the PFL, I could imagine, ONE FC throwing a pot full of cash at him or something like that. But
I could see that. So I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, we will see. Mark, do us a favor, do our listeners a favor, and if you could give us just a rundown of the rest of those PFL and Bellator cards real quick.
Sure. So the most noteworthy one in terms of, like talked about on social media had to be the controversial decision in the lightweight semifinal between Clay Collard and Raush Manfio.
Great fight, though. Great fight.
Yeah.
Fantastic fight.
It was a great fight, which is why, credit to both guys. Manfio was in it the whole time and won round 3. Mm-hmm. So it feels weird to kind of bash him right now. But to me, the guy did not deserve that W. I don't know how you can possibly score either of those first 2 rounds for Manfio. I thought Collard won both clearly. Watching round 2, when I rewatched it, I actually forgot that Collard had that late takedown. So I'm watching it and I was like, oh shit, maybe this is the one. Like, it's kind of tight right now. Maybe Manfio's slightly ahead. And then Collard gets the takedown and lands like 10 punches and 2 sub attempts in like the last 40 seconds. And I was like, okay, like that was as clear as it can get. So I don't know how you can justify either of those rounds going Manfio's way. I feel so bad for Collard that he was robbed of a chance to fight for $1 million. But again, as we've said before, judging has got to be better than that. It made no sense to me. But yeah, so then going on from there, the lightweight semifinal opposite that one was Loic Radzhabov won a unanimous decision over Alex Martinez. Pretty comfortable decision. He leaned on his wrestling, controlled the fight. I really think it would have been a fun clash to see him against Collard style-wise. So again, I'm upset that we got robbed of that one, but we'll see him against Manfio in the finals there. In the other welterweight semi opposite the Cooper MacDonald one that we've discussed, was Magomed Karamov winning a unanimous decision over Sadabusi. This one was not close, as expected. Maga Millions walks into the finals, but that'll be a fun final. Him against Cooper, and that's a rematch that Cooper has been wanting for a few years now. So that should be a good one. And then switching over to Bellator, we had a couple other noteworthy fights, which were Andrei Koreshkov making his return to Bellator, winning a unanimous decision over Sabah Hamasi, where he basically drubbed him. I mean, Hamasi was tough as hell. Hamasi, excuse me, was tough as hell. Give him his credit. But Koreshkov absolutely reminded everyone how good he was. He really styled on him. He put a beating on Hamasi in that fight. And then the other fight, which was maybe the most noteworthy of all these undercard fights, was Raufeon Stats winning a unanimous decision over Magomedov. This was a great high-level fight. One that if both of these guys stay in Bellator, we'll probably end up seeing again. Magomedov showed how good he is for sure, but for Stats to almost completely nullify the wrestling of Magomedov the way that he did was wildly impressive. I mean, the guy's sprawl was like the fastest sprawl I've ever seen in my life. It was incredible. So I don't want to say he's like an AJ McKee level talent or anything like that, but he might be very, very good. Sergio Pettis is going to have a tough fight on his hands if that's the way that they're going here. And Bellator may have found themselves another young stud here.
All right. Thank you for that, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Omar, anything you want to say about some of those fights?
No, actually, I mean, Mark summed them up pretty well. No, I'm good.
I'm excited for that Cooper Magomed Karamov fight.
Yes.
Same.
Stylistically, it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, it should be.
I think that wrestling is not going to matter in the end with that fight. I think they're really going to end up standing up, and that one should be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, moving things along here, there will be no pre-rankings this week, guys, because pre-rankings are based off of the UFC roster, and we are not reacting to any UFC fights from last weekend. But next week we will definitely have an update on those UFC rankings, because this coming weekend we have UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Gastelum. That being said, let's jump into the second half of our show, which is going to be previewing upcoming cards. So tonight, actually, as we record this right now, is the next round of the PFL playoffs, where we have Harrison versus Fabian, and also Capazola versus Jones. So we are a little late on getting those previews for you guys. So let's move on to this coming Friday. We have Bellator preview, Bellator 265, Kongo versus Kharitonov. So Cheick Kongo versus Sergei, the paratrooper Kharitonov. It is going to be a huge class in the heavyweight division. Mark, let me start with you. What do you make of this division? Cheick Kongo, the 46-year-old Frenchman, coming off of a split decision loss to Timothy Johnson, which happened back in October of 2020, versus Kharitonov, a 41-year-old Russian, coming off back-to-back wins, both earned in the year 2020, looking to extend his winning streak.
Yeah, this is a cool fight for MMA diehards, simply because it's two guys who have stacked resumes, who we've been watching for years, who probably you never expected to see in a cage together, and now here we are. It's tough to gauge, considering you have a 41-year-old fighting a 46-year-old, and you never know when someone's going to start looking really bad. But hopefully we're not there yet, and we get a good fight here. I love Kharitonov, always have. The dude is a beast. He can put your lights out at any moment. But I will say, at this point in Sergei's career, I don't really feel like he does so well against anyone with speed, anyone that can move in there. And Kongo is still that. He has kind of changed his game a bit, that he fights this smarter game. He clinches a lot. He maintains his distance. But he's great at it. He for a guy who's as old as he is, 46 years old, the dude can still move in there. He does not strike you as a 46-year-old man at all. And to this point, he hasn't given us any reason to think his chin is going or anything like that. Obviously, he's been knocked out in the past years back by guys like Mark Hunt and Roy Nelson when they were kind of at their UFC peaks. But Kharitonov, as much as a KO threat as he is, he's not the level of threat that they were at that time. So unless Kongo gets caught, which I don't expect, I think the most likely scenario is that he's the faster fighter. He'll work in the clinch where he should have the advantage and kind of dictate the way the fight plays out and win his decision.
Omar, this should be a really fun fight at heavyweight here for Bellator. Kharitonov is not necessarily a name that a lot of MMA fans know, probably because he's never fought under that UFC banner. But this is a guy, let me real quick cue this up for you. This is a guy who's been around the block. Kharitonov has wins as a pro over the likes of Matt Mitrione, Roy Nelson, Joey Beltran, Andrei Arlovsky, Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Verdum, and my favorite, Pedro Hizzo for the diehards. Now, some of those wins, you gotta go into the way back machine to know when those wins happen. But regardless, this is a guy who has a lot of boasting and bragging rights as a professional in the sport. So that being said, what do you make of this matchup of Kharitonov versus Cheick Kongo?
I think it's just another notch to kind of go on his belt, to be honest. I know that Cheick Kongo's been winning since he's been in Bellator. I haven't really cared for Cheick Kongo for a long time, just because he also kind of hasn't really been exciting to me in a long time personally. I feel like after a certain point in the UFC, he started to fight, to Mark's credit, differently. Scared may not be the right way to say it, but definitely not trying to engage the same way that he used to. And when fighters start to change the way they fight to that extent, I start to just wonder why they're just not just like hang him up. You know what I mean? I could be wrong. That's definitely just my opinion, but it just took a little way of something of why I used to like Cheick Kongo to begin with, when I first started watching him. So I say all that to say that I don't necessarily have the most confidence in his ability to get through this guy, because you're right. This guy has a crazy resume. He knocked out Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson doesn't have a ton of wins on his resume compared to losses in that sense, right? But there are not a ton of people who have knocked out Roy Nelson.
Yeah.
That's
what happened?
Were you
sorry, you were saying Sergei knocks out Roy Nelson?
Yeah.
My bad. I thought you said Kongo did. I was like,
no,
wait, no, he did not.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't really have confidence.
Yeah, I feel you.
Is because of the resume of I'm not gonna say his name. Kharitonov.
In the Russian, it's always like equal stress. Kharitonov.
I can do a Gegard voice. I can't say a last name.
Like with Khabib, some people say Nurmagomedov, some people say Nurmagomedov, but generally, I believe in Russian, it's supposed to be equal stress.
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
I believe
Kharitonov,
the dude who does speech for a living. I'll take it. That's good advice.
What's wild about Sergei is that, like, it kind of feels like he left the scene for a while, like post like his Strikeforce days.
Yeah.
But I just pulled up his resume right now, and obviously we know he's been in Bellator and quite a few fights there. But even since in the last decade, let's say, so he lost 2 fights.
Yeah.
Like it feels like he has lost more than that. Like,
because he's been around so long.
Yeah, it's just it feels like he has slid from the top more than that. You know what I mean? It feels like he should have lost more than only 2 fights. It's crazy.
What's amazing to me is that Cheick Kongo's 46 years old. I mean, he's closer to 50 now than he is to 40. I mean, neither one of these guys are spring chickens, but
No.
just to go back to Omar's point from before, one wonders how long a guy is going to continue to just to fight, heavyweight monsters, as they're approaching 50 years old. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, Kongo was getting really close to the title, which I could see being a reason for him to be like, I'm gonna stick this out. But now, obviously, taking that loss, he not quite.
I mean, Kongo has had 2 attempts now at the Bellator heavyweight strap, and the most recent one being right before his last fight, his fight with Ryan Bader, which ended by a no contest because of an accidental eye poke.
Right. Yeah, that was bad.
So marching on, guys, the other, I think, newsworthy fight from this card is that Adam Borics against JJ Wilson in the featherweight division was supposed to be a title eliminator to see who would go on and challenge the newly crowned featherweight king, AJ McKee. However, this fight has been scrapped because JJ Wilson missed weight. Not horrible, but not good. He missed weight by 4 pounds. He weighed in
the worst. It's the worst miss that he's had. He's missed 3
overall.
But he weighed 3 out of 4.
He weighed in at 150.4 pounds, missing the 146-pound limit by about 4 pounds. So definitely missing this one on this card.
It's disappointing, man, because Wilson is really, really good. Like he feels like one of those guys who kind of like has it. Like he gets it done in ways that you're like, oh shit, like that was something. So this was it for him. My man was about to fight Adam Borics, who only has 1 loss. Like this was the time to shine. So it's painful that he can't seem to make this weight. And if he has to go up to lightweight, which is what it's starting to feel like, I'm assuming he's probably not going to have the same success against bigger fighters, especially since he's a grappler. So yeah, it's a shame that Wilson can't make the weight.
Yeah.
And he seems like he's getting worse at making weight. Like he's making less weight now than he was before when he was still missing before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and then the rest of that Bellator card is rather empty.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, let's jump ahead now to this coming Saturday night, a UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Gastelum, guys. This is a main event that I'm actually really looking forward to in the middleweight division at the UFC. So, Omar, let me start with you. We have Jared Cannonier, the Killer Gorilla, going up against Kelvin Gastelum. Now, it was supposed to be Cannonier against Paulo Costa. That was supposed to be the headliner for this event. However, in early June, Costa withdrew from the bout due to unknown reasons and was replaced by the former interim title challenger, Kelvin Gastelum. Costa later claimed that he never signed the bout agreement and he had issues with his payment, even though that was never really confirmed. So now we have Cannoniers taking a lower ranked opponent instead of a higher ranked opponent in Gastelum. But Kelvin Gastelum is a guy who at middleweight has the bragging rights to say that he gave the middleweight champ, Israel Adesanya, his toughest test. So this would still be somewhat of a pretty good scout for Jared Cannonier. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Kelvin Gastelum is still Kelvin Gastelum. I don't think it ever is going to matter what ranking that kid is at. Kelvin Gastelum, I think, at this point is proven himself time and time again. Regardless of whether he wins or he loses, you're not going to walk out of there the same. Kelvin's a monster. Really quick, actually. Spoiler alert, if you guys wanted to watch PFL, cover your ears.
Or pause.
Or fast forward.
Skip ahead 30 seconds.
Or just tune in, because Kayla Harrison just caught another body.
Oh God. I thought you were saying she lost. I was like, holy fuck.
No, caught another body, 50 some odd strikes on the ground. The poor girl that she fought didn't touch her, literally didn't hit her once.
Oh, geez.
So,
I mean, can we just get there? Can we just cancel the rest of PFL, release her from the contract, get her in the UFC, get her down to 145, and do the friggin' Nunez fight? Like, can we just do it? There's no reason to wait.
Not until she gets that $1 million. She wants her money.
Fine, let her get $1 million first, and then let's fucking make it happen.
I mean, the UFC has no other women's featherweight, so
no, zero. Like
that would be a good way to ride off into the sunset for Amanda too.
Yeah,
of
this
course.
is the fight. We have to see this fight.
This is true.
All right, back to business. So
yes,
Cannonier.
I respect that sidebar.
Fantastic fight. I think that if Cannonier were to beat Gastelum, regardless, like I said, of the ranking, I think it still puts a fantastic notch on his belt. That's definitely something that comes like what we always talk about, those value wins. That's definitely one of them. That definitely speaks to the middleweight division, where Cannonier is in the middleweight division. We all know that a lot of the rankings, I don't want to necessarily say it's like political or whatever, but a lot of times, a lot of events happen that don't necessarily correlate to Cannonier is going to beat Gastelum because he's number 3 and because he's number 9, right? Things just sort of happened. Gastelum ended up where he ended up. Cannonier ended up where he ended up. But I definitely think that this is just as much of a dangerous fight as if he was fighting Paulo Costa. I think Cannonier has obviously a lot to lose in this fight. Gastelum's coming in with a little bit more of an advantage in that sense, as far as like the weight on your shoulders, so to say. Cannonier wants that title fight, and he's like right there.
Yeah, man.
And so if he's got, I feel like he's gotten to this point before where he was like right there, and then he ended up with a broken arm somewhere and didn't win that fight.
Well, that was it. He hasn't fought since that fight.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, since the Whitaker. You're talking about the
Yes.
Both guys are coming off. Yeah, they're both coming off of losses to Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whitaker.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So
Mark, this is a really fun matchup at middleweight, I think. You know, both guys are still in the top 10 in the UFC rankings, excuse me. And this will be a fight for Gastelum, you know, to get him right back into sort of that upper echelon at middleweight. So let me get your thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, so I really like this matchup, and it's funny because when Gastelum first stepped in for Costa, I was like, all right, like that's fine. And as it's gotten closer and closer, I'm more intrigued by this matchup. So I'm actually pretty into it now. I love that you have Cannonier, who has already ascended to this point of being number 3 in the world.
Yeah,
which I agree with. I have him 3 in my own rankings as well. But he's only fought 4 times at middleweight, where he's 3-1. So I kind of love that he has to get past this like middleweight warhorse kind of that Gastelum has become. I think it's a really nice test for him. And if he does win, especially if he does so impressively, then all of a sudden Jared Cannonier, number 3 in the world, starts to feel like a lot more legit, a lot more of a real threat than I feel like he does right now. Middleweight feels like a little bit shallow right now, but that's the kind of win that kind of changes Cannonier's perception in my mind. So I like this fight. I think it's an intriguing angle. And then obviously, like you said, the other way around, Gastelum would explode back onto the scene if he can get this win. I still have him at 7 personally, so a little higher than the UFC. But he's certainly on a slide, which you cannot deny. So yeah, a couple things I noticed. This is Kelvin's 20th fight in the UFC, which felt crazy to me that he's already had that many fights. Other thing is that Kelvin is 29, which is wild.
Yeah.
Like he feels like he should be older than 29.
Cannonier is 37, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Cannonier's up there, man. He's up there. But yeah, so in terms of the fight, I mean, should I be getting into breaking down the fight?
Do it, yeah.
So it's hard for me kind of to gauge either one of these guys, because you have Cannonier, who's had this weird career where he was a heavyweight, and a light heavyweight and a middleweight. So he's got losses, but they're to like Sean Jordan, who's an animal at heavyweight. Then it's to Glover and Jan Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes. So what do you really make of these things? And then obviously Robert Whitaker, who's incredible. So he hasn't really lost to anyone I mean, Sean Jordan's not a huge name, but again, he's a heavyweight. And now we've learned Cannonier is naturally a middleweight.
Yeah.
So it's like all these losses are like, all right, well, those are all perfectly acceptable losses, but he doesn't necessarily have the huge wins either. He does have Hermanson, which you can't take away from him. But other than that, I kind of feel like he has the losses to these guys, wins these guys, and you're like, I'm not entirely sure where he stacks up in here.
Absolutely.
So he's a little bit hard to gauge in that regard. And then Gastelum is kind of hard to gauge because of kind of the opposite scenario, where he was this very proven fighter who we kind of felt like we knew exactly what he was. And then he's on this slide out of nowhere that no one really saw coming. Especially like getting caught by Hermanson so fast the way he did. And then he did beat Heinisch, but it wasn't anything demonstrative. So it's like you're kind of waiting for like, is Kelvin Gastelum still in there? So it's tough to know exactly where either of these guys are at coming into this fight. But that's just another reason I kind of like the fight. I like how they match up. I think Jared probably tries to work some leg kicks, which Kelvin can be hurt with. He has been before, and tries to work that range game because he is going to have a 6-inch reach advantage in there, in the hopes that he can get Kelvin frustrated and kind of make him open up so that he can land the power shots that he's known for, Cannonier. Whereas on the flip, I would love to see Kelvin wrestle. I don't know if he will do that. It wouldn't shock me if we just get a straight kickboxing fight. But I would love to see him wrestle. And if not that, at least kind of use the clinch to get himself inside, even when you're separating from the clinch. That way you're in that range right there, as opposed to trying to barrel into it. So I want to at least see some grappling out of Kelvin in this fight, but I'm torn on which way I think it goes. I've kind of been flip-flopping on it, but I keep coming back to the fact that Kelvin has never been knocked out. And he just keeps coming. He comes at you for all 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Cannonier can't get him out of there, I don't know if he's ready to have that kind of pace for 5 rounds. So it's tight and nothing would surprise me at all. But I think I'm landing with Kelvin taking a decision and kind of putting himself back in the picture here.
Wow. At middleweight, personally, I don't like seeing Kelvin at middleweight. I think, I mean, obviously he's had weight cutting issues at welterweight, but the guy's only 5'9". I mean, Cannonier isn't a giant either. The guy's only 5. He's only 5'11", but he's a guy who's fought at light heavy and heavyweight.
Yeah, for sure. Kelvin's career, if done correctly, should have taken place at welterweight.
I mean, I can't, but he's still a top 10 middleweight somehow.
I know, it's like hard.
He has such great hands. Right? And speaking of his hands, I disagree. I don't think we're going to see him wrestle at all. When's the last time we saw Kelvin use wrestling? He's become.
He did against Heinisch when he just beat Heinisch, and I was happy to see it.
Well,
but yeah, prior to that, not for a bit.
I think he's the kind of guy, the kind of wrestler who actually becomes a great boxer in his career and just falls in love with his hands.
Oh, his hands are so good. I love his hands. His 1-2, like his little right jab into his left. It's like they almost happen at the same exact time. Yeah. Like it's so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Omar, what do you think of this matchup? Who are you going to take? Let's hear it.
So I am torn between this fight because Gastelum not getting knocked out at this point in my head is really more of a technicality, because with seconds, Izzy could have killed that kid at the end of that fight.
Yeah, but I mean, on the same note, how many times did Izzy drop him and he wouldn't go away?
I agreed. But it just, so my thing is Cannonier. I'm pretty sure Cannonier is probably one of the hardest hitting people in that entire division right now. That's my biggest concern, because you know, Gastelum's not a big kid. He's fucking my height. I am Gastelum's height. Okay, at 185 pounds. I mean, Cannonier walks around with essentially like 2 baseball bats walking on 2 sledgehammers. It seems like there's going to be a real power discrepancy there. I'm not saying Gastelum can't take, hits. He obviously trains with some of the best at Kings.
Yep.
But at the same time, man, like Cannonier hits like a beast. It visibly looks like he hits mad hard.
Yeah, man.
Worse than anybody else in that division. And with the size difference that there already is, that he already has to deal with that entire division, some guys that are taller than him or whatever, there's just always a size discrepancy one way or the other. And I think if you're going to add the fact that this dude is just powerful for that weight class, period, I don't see Gastelum walking out of there, man. I really don't. I actually think Gastelum will probably get knocked out. Gastelum is a fantastic fighter. He uses his range well. He has the ability to stay away to a certain extent. But he's also the type of guy that's not going to try and like lose this fight either. So he'll put himself in dangerous positions. And I think, unlike other fights, if he gets hit with one of those things, he's probably going to drop.
I mean, Cannonier is going to be enjoying a 6-inch reach advantage. So on the feet, but on the feet also, like we said, Gastelum's hands are so good. He's such a good boxer. But Gastelum, other than the Adesanya fight, help me think, has he ever really been blown away? All his losses are decision losses as of late.
Chris Weidman was the only other one that really kind of, I mean, and that was after Chris Weidman got dropped in the first round. But that was just because Chris Weidman was like double his size and sat on him for 2.5 rounds.
His size was huge in that fight, yeah. And it was close until it wasn't close.
Yeah, right. I mean, the first round was the closest round.
Yeah.
I
don't know, man. I think
Gastelum is the reason I feel like you need like a 175 division. Gastelum is like the perfect example of 175.
He could run it.
Yeah.
Man, would you want to see Gastelum against Usman?
Yeah,
it'd be awesome. I wish the man was a welterweight. That would be.
Yes.
I so badly wish he was a welterweight. It's so much more appealing matching him against those guys.
Yeah.
But I think especially now, we'll never see it even now because
it's not.
He spent so much time now at 185. His body must have just gotten accustomed to that. If he was having trouble making 170 back then, he's not making 170 now.
I'm sure he's not. Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah.
I think this is still a tough fight to pick stylistically.
It's interesting too because Cannonier is not a slouch of a wrestler. So you could even argue that if Kelvin goes that route, he still might not find success. It's, there's certainly an argument to be made for either side.
Margaret, I still like your pick so much. Gastelum by decision is such an interesting take. I'm going to go against my better judgment. I'm going to take Cannonier by second round knockout.
Ooh. The odds are pretty close for what it is worth. Cannonier is minus 150 and Gastelum is plus 130.
Okay.
So if you're like us and you're super torn and you want to bet it, Gastelum at 130 is probably worth it.
Yeah. All right. Let's march down this card unless you guys have anything else to say about this main event. We also have an interesting fight, Clay Guida against Mark Madsen. Mark, let me start with you on this. What do you make of this matchup? Clay Guida is a guy who's been around forever in the UFC. And Madsen hasn't been around in a minute.
No. So he's been off since March of 2020. I'm not sure if there was anything like COVID travel related there. Because he is Danish. Which, on that note, let's start off with this. To half the people with a mic in front of their face talking about MMA, the man's name is not O Madsen. He is not Irish. He's Danish. The O is his middle initial. I can't take all these people like, O Madsen. Kills me. With that said, it's Overgard or something like that. It's his middle name.
Yeah, Overgard.
But all the time I hear these people, oh, Madsen's looking great. Like, no, he's not, because it's not his name. But on that note, I really do love this matchup. You have Madsen, who won an Olympic silver in 2016 in Greco-Roman wrestling, who is obviously elite as a wrestler. But then you pair him against a guy who has excellent, quote unquote, MMA wrestling and grappling and everything that comes with it. So I love that we're going to see that clash. We're going to see how Madsen stacks up in an octagon against a dude with the wrestling credentials of Clay Guida. What's crazy is that Madsen is already 36 years old. Like, Guida's 39 and he feels like he's ancient.
Yes.
Madsen is coming up and he's already 36. So I am happy that the UFC, after only 2 fights for Madsen, seem to be kind of moving him up the ladder here. And if he beats Guida, he's probably going to be in some interesting fights. So I'm glad we're moving the guy along since he's already 36, because he certainly does seem like he has the potential to be a factor here, because his wrestling is that good. Mm-hmm. In terms of the fight, I do think Madsen can probably get it done. Guida's not impossible to take down by any means. I could see the fight for sure start to swing as it goes on, like come round 3, where Guida kind of starts putting it on him or figuring out his timing, stuffing some things. Probably not enough to get a finish, but Guida winning round 3 would not shock me. But I think Madsen will probably be up 2-0 at that point already. Mm-hmm. So I will go with Madsen by decision, but I love the fight.
Omar, let's get your pick.
Yeah, I'd have to go the same way. I think Clay is very easy to mess with. I think the problem with Clay, with anybody who fights with him, is keeping the pace. Clay Guida is the type of guy who's probably like walking cocaine. That man just doesn't, he's just 100%, 200% all the time. Forward. He's a legitimate wild man when you look at him. So I think the real problem is trying to nullify not only, his striking and everything else that comes with it, but just the pace in general. That pace is going to come with consequences, because if Mark Madsen backs up even for the 2 rounds, your man's going to be tired. And I can tell you that regardless of what happens in those first 2 rounds, whether it's Mark Madsen on top of Clay Guida for 2 rounds, Clay Guida is going to come out of that 3rd round like if it was the first round. I promise you that, 100%. So I think it's in Mark Madsen's best interest to be done with it sooner rather than later, because the longer the fight goes on, the worse it could possibly be for him, because Clay Guida will not slow down.
You got a pick?
Yes. I'm going to go with Mark Madsen by decision.
I'm going to go with Mark Madsen. I think he's going to do more damage to Clay Guida. Nobody in the God's green earth can match Clay Guida's pace. Nobody has a motor like that guy. That guy's bouncing up and down at the weigh-ins. It's like, geez, man, calm down. I think he lives on Red Bull. But I think Madsen, look, I think Clay Guida runs into problems when he comes up against guys who just outclass him and outmatch him. And that's going to be the case with Madsen here. Madsen's undefeated as a pro, and I think we're going to see his talent rise above against Clay Guida. So I'm going to take him by a unanimous decision as well.
You gotta love Clay Guida though, right? Like we've seen Clay Guida get knocked out. The referee called the fight, and Clay Guida pop right back up and go and hug the guy that just knocked him out.
He's the Energizer Bunny, man.
Yeah, dude. Like there is something genuinely terrifying about a man that even when you knock him out, it's not actually knocked out, just comes right back up.
Do you think Clay Guida sleeps?
I think he shakes while he sleeps.
he's still going. His hair's bouncing up and down.
I'll tell you what, the betting odds are kind of giving Guida respect. A lot of people are high on Madsen, so I was curious how high he might be here. But it's pretty similar to the last fight we just mentioned. It's Madsen's the favorite at -160, and Guida is +140. So it's not that wide. I kind of thought it would be wider than that.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be a good one.
Now, one last fight that I wanted to touch on this card, a fight that I'm the most excited about, is going to be Brandon Royval, one of my favorites down in the men's flyweight division. He's taking on Alexandre. How do you say his last name, Mark? Help me out.
Pantoja. I think it's Alexandre, right? Isn't that how he says it, Omar?
Yeah, he's
Brazilian, of course.
I think it's Alexandre Pantoja.
Alexandre Pantoja.
Yeah.
And he also has another last name. up on Wikipedia, but Brazilians all have 6 names, so it's okay.
He had it too, I think, in the beginning of his UFC career, and then he was like, yeah, fuck that one.
Yeah.
A lot of Latin names are basically just passwords.
And sometimes Brazilians, they will treat their nicknames like as their last name.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
When I'm going down a card that I'm announcing and I try to reach out to fighters to get their information, their height and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be like, what's your name and how do you want me to say it? What's your nickname? And I'll look on the guy's like Sherdog page or something like that. And the guy's name is like, like Jacques, Ronaldo Souza Silva. And he has like 4 names.
Yeah.
And then he'll just be like, call me this. I'm like, just that. He's like, yeah, that's all it is. I'm like, no, it's not.
Like, it'll be like, call me Ronaldo Bull.
Yes.
I think that's it. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Mark, let me start with you. Royval versus Pantoja. What do you make of this matchup down at the flyweight division?
Love this fight.
Great
Such a good fight. It's easily the second best fight on this card.
Why is it not the co-main?
I don't understand why it's not the co-main. My mind is blown. I don't know if they like wanted to open the card with it, thought it'd be exciting. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, especially on a card that's like not so deep.
Right.
Why would you not make that your co-main? I don't understand it. It's the second best fight on the card, skill level wise, but probably also excitement wise. It should be an awesome matchup.
Fireworks.
Yeah. I love this fight. It's in my own rankings, I have Pantoja 5 and Royval 6. I think Pantoja is slightly higher in the UFC rankings.
3 and 4, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So, but these guys are right there. Like this is, maybe not necessarily a title eliminator because flyweight is very murky right now. But, the winner of this is going to be maybe one fight away from a title shot. So this is a huge fight that's kind of going under the radar in the beginning of this card here.
Yeah, both guys who, again, because in the confusion of why this is not the co-main of this fight night, this fight features fighters other than the main event. These 2 guys are the highest rank in their division on this card. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
So really confusing.
They're
Omar.
also the only other ranked fighters on the main card other than the main event. It's the weirdest thing.
I mean, Brandon Royval is coming off a loss to the champ, Brandon Moreno.
Mm-hmm.
So
a relatively recent one too. It's not like that was a long time ago.
Yeah, Omar, let me stay with you. Let me get your thoughts on this upcoming fight against Pantoja and Royval.
I love this fight. Either one of these guys individually, you could tell me that they were going to fight, and I would not miss it for the world. Pantoja is always a good time. He's an exciting striker. That man comes to bring it every single time. And Royval is one of the more psychotic people that we've seen in the octagon as of recent. That dude is 8 buckets of crazy, and I love watching him fight. The Moreno fight was a crazy ass fight. If I remember right, didn't have something to do with Royval breaking something during a slam, or I think
he dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah, he was. Things just got so crazy in the octagon that like his shoulder just came out.
Yep.
He's just he's a wild man. He's a wild man in his own respect. But he's dangerous, man. Like, his last 2 performances other than Moreno ended up in submissions. And that comes with a lot of the opportunity that he brings when he's getting crazy in that octagon. He creates those openings. So he's a very dangerous person. Pantoja is no slouch on the ground, though. I mean, again, Brazilian, he knows what he's doing in BJJ. But I think if we're looking at them respectfully next to each other, Pantoja, I think, would have more tools on paper, and a bit sharper, I guess, or a bit more refined, right? He doesn't need to get as crazy as Royval does because he kind of has a direct line that he knows what he wants to do. He knows what his A, B's, and C's are to get to his end goal. Royval just kind of like, he knows what he wants. He knows what he has the ability to do. But it seems like a lot of times he's just sort of like flipping a coin, seeing what happens, and then, working from there, which has seemed to work for him. But when you get to those elite levels, you got you have guys playing chess, and so they, once they kind of get a mark on what you're doing, it becomes harder to be spontaneous.
Got some picks for this fight, boys.
I think it's going to get crazy, but I think they're both going to end up going the distance. I think I'm going to do Pantoja by decision.
Oh, babe, Mark.
So I love that whole take. I think you pretty much nailed my same opinion. I think what this boils down to is that Pantoja is so good everywhere the fight goes. And that, like, yes, Royval is flashy and crazy and takes these chances with his grappling, and that's why we love him. But against a grappler who is as measured and controlled and good as Pantoja is, I feel like that's actually the kind of strategy that will get you in trouble and potentially get you caught yourself. And then the Royval is just as crazy of a striker, honestly. But again, Omar nailed it. I think Pantoja is just too measured, too precise. So I'm going to roll with him. I kind of was debating saying sub because of what I was just saying, that Royval is just so crazy that he ends up putting his own self into something. But I'll go with decision as well. I'm going to say Pantoja by decision. And keep in mind, this is a dude who has beaten our current flyweight champion, Brandon Moreno, twice.
Yeah.
He subbed him on tough with a rear naked choke and then beat him a few years back by decision. So, not the same Brandon Moreno we have right now necessarily, but to say you're 2-0 against that dude, pretty good.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm going to go with Brandon Royval because I love him. I've never seen a boring Royval fight. So I'm going to go with him. I'm going to say he's going to get a submission in round number 1.
Wow. That would be, if he can sub Pantoja.
Why not?
That would be a hell of a scalp to say you submitted.
I think because he makes it so wild. He's going to catch him in something.
It would be dope. I'm here for it.
Awesome.
I'm probably rooting for him, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah, love Royval, man.
He is, I've given the odds for the rest. Might as well give it for this one. I should probably have been doing it in the beginning, but oh well. Royval is plus 150, so you get decent odds there. Pantoja's minus 175 favorite.
Yeah, I want Pantoja to win just because I want that rematch. I want Moreno to get that one back.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It would be cool. Good storyline there.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, boys, let's put a pin in this one, in this preview, and let's go to our final segment tonight, a news segment for this show. I'm excited for this one, man. This is Inside the MMA Sphere with Omar Artola. This is going to be Omar's segment. So, Omar, take it away. The first ever Inside the MMA Sphere. What do you got for us this week?
Gentlemen, welcome to Inside the MMA Sphere. I'm glad you're able to join us. So basically what we want to do here is just kind of give you guys a rundown of the hot things that are going on inside of the MMA sphere, the MMA world, and just kind of bring it all to you in one spot so you guys don't have to do it on your own. So we'll just bring up some things that have been interesting in the week prior. We're going to start off really quick. So the tough semifinals were all set. The last episode of Tough, pre-recorded Tough, I should say, basically aired this past week. And we had a finale set, but Tresean Gore, the Tough middleweight finalist, is now out of that fight, and he was replaced by the guy that he beat, who is Gilbert Urbina. It's a cool storyline just because Urbina's brothers have been on Tough before. They haven't necessarily made it all the way. Urbina was like right there just before that last semifinal fight, fell short, got pretty beat up in that fight, to be honest, too. But now has a chance to win it all at the end of the day. And you know how I love opportunity. Opportunity like this is just a good time, man. It's fun to watch. So definitely check that one out. That should be fun to watch. The good news is Gore is still going to be getting a shot at the UFC once he's all healed up. I believe his meniscus is torn up. So Dana White made sure that he's still going to be getting a decent shot once he gets back. So he should be in good shape.
Yeah, I was happy to hear that. That dude looks legitimately frightening.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, he's got rockets in his hands.
Yes, he does.
Problem for sure. Next up, Kat Zingano's in the news. She apparently ran into some legal issues with Halle Berry, and is now suing her over a missed opportunity with Halle Berry's new role for Bruised, which is her new MMA-based movie. So apparently the story goes that Kat Zingano was offered a role. Halle Berry had kind of talked to her about potentially coming onto the movie and wanting to be in the movie. Halle Berry is a huge MMA aficionado. She loves going to the fight. She met tons of fighters at this point. So she was very excited about working with, or it seemed like she was very excited about working with Kat Zingano for this movie. As it turns out, the shooting of the movie was in conflict with a fight that Kat Zingano had scheduled. I can't remember now off the top of my head exactly which one, but it was basically the last one that she had scheduled with the UFC because they cut her as a result of her turning it down. She turned down the fight because she went to Halle Berry, told her what the situation was, and said, if I'm going to be in this movie, that's cool, but like I want to know I'm going to be in this movie if I'm going to turn down this fight, because if not, then I'll just go to the fight, make my money, and do what I got to do.
Understandable.
Remember that Zingano is a mother. You know, she's got to provide. It's not just her. So
Yes.
you know, Mike knows what it's all about. But so that was the deal that was kind of set. And because she was released, Halle Berry had to then come back to Zingano and say, I can only work with UFC fighters. It seems like it's a contractual thing.
Unbelievable.
But it seems like that was, it was like a catch-22. So
I can only imagine that meeting being like, so
yeah,
we actually could only work with UFC fighters.
How awkward is that?
Oh my God, that poor woman.
So as a result of her turning down the fight so that she could take the movie, she lost her spot in the UFC, which then resulted in her losing
the
movie
God
slot.
I mean, just hearing this whole sequence like explained of like, obviously it sucks for Kat Zingano, but that being said, I'm always going to side with Halle Berry because I love her. And
I can't imagine Halle Berry sitting there like, fuck Kat Zingano.
Right.
I can't. Like,
Yeah.
Halle Berry has to, she has to know that there is a little bit of responsibility in her court, right? There's just a little bit. You made promises. I doubt she explained the whole, they have to be UFC fighters. And you just left her out of the cold.
She probably never felt the need to, because why would Halle Berry be thinking Kat Zingano is going to get cut from the UFC?
But once you find out it's a direct result, like, you're Halle Berry, right? Like, it probably wouldn't hurt you to help the girl out a little bit, whether it's
what I was going to say.
Getting some money, or even finding her another opportunity.
Yeah.
Forget giving her a check. Maybe find her something else that might, bring her the same type of opportunities that the movie might have. But I'm hoping they'll get that settled. Hopefully, because right now it's messy, and honestly, the situation's pretty messed up. So hopefully they figure that out.
I also hope the UFC can re-sign her. If she can go back to whatever executives and be like, look, explain this whole situation to them, and they'll be like, all right, let's re-sign you and book you again or something like that.
It doesn't really seem like a lot of fighters that leave the UFC want to go back.
Yeah, she signed to Bellator. She's 2-0 in Bellator already.
And she's at 145.
Yeah.
He ain't cutting weight.
Yeah. A lot easier to say I'll fight at 145 when you don't have to worry about Amanda Nunes being there. I mean, granted, Bellator does have Cyborg there, so.
Good point.
But she's also getting money from sponsorships as well, where in the UFC she's not going to be granted that. So,
all right,
Cyborg versus Zingano would actually be cool.
That would be. Omar, what else you got?
Next up, we have a little hero moment. You guys know that I have talked shit about Brendan Schaub before. Today is not one of those days. Brendan Schaub did some pretty cool shit. He saw a pretty bad accident on the highway. Apparently, there was a man who decided that he was going to try to end his life along with literally his whole family, his wife and his 4 kids. Excuse me. Drove down the highway at a crazy speed and basically went against the traffic. And
he went the wrong way on purpose.
Yeah. Yep. And the real sick irony is he lived.
Was he trying to live? Like he was trying to only kill them?
He was trying to kill everybody.
Everybody.
My God. He lived. His wife or the mother, I'm assuming wife, but the mother of the children,
yeah, she died.
She passed, and the 4 kids were trapped in the back. Well, from
And
what it sounds like, screaming for their life.
I thought 3 had survived. All 4 survived?
I believe all 4. The only person I remember,
I think all 4 survived.
I think the only person that passed was the mother. And so, you know, Brendan saw the accident. He saw the kids screaming from the car, and he jumped out and went to help them. You know, I think one of the things that struck me the most was when he talked about making sure the kids didn't see his mom, because his mom, the mother, it was a bad accident.
Yeah, I read it. It was
the
bad.
mother was not in one piece.
Yeah.
So
he was like, don't look over there. Look at me. Keep looking at me.
Yeah, that one hit me kind of messed up there.
You know what though? Props to Brendan Schaub, man, for a guy 100%. Who now has become so successful and so rich. He easily could have just driven his Porsche or whatever car he was in right past him and been like, oh shit, look at that. That's crazy. Yeah. But he stopped his car and he got out and he helped. That's like
not only that, but now he's helping pay for the funeral and even said that he wants to help do something for the kids. So
because I mean,
good on that dude. Can't hate on him today.
Yeah, for sure. A
guy who gets a fair amount of hate because he kind of is a character. He's kind of become this sort of persona, this caricature of himself, and he's easy to hate on, I think, in the MMA world.
Yeah,
I think he knows that though.
I'm not a big fan of his.
Seems like he's pretty self-aware about that.
Yeah, it's kind of part of his like rise to fame. I feel like is that he's open to the hate.
Yeah,
I also don't find him funny. Like somewhere along the line, I woke up and he was a professional comedian, and I was like, where? But like, and I'm look. I'm not gonna be on a picket line like Brendan Schaub isn't funny. Like, you know, let him do what he wants to do. But it just, you know, I've personally never been the hugest fan of him, even when he was a fighter, frankly. But
now you got to find him funny for at least 24 hours.
I will find him agreeable for 24 hours. But kudos to him. That's some serious shit to do. And I think he definitely deserves some credit because I would like to think I would react in a similar fashion, but I have no idea. So good on him. Yeah. Our last little bit, I would like to make it happy, but you know, we have a little bit of some sadder news. There was a death in the MMA sphere. His name was Sal Solis. He is a very large and respected trainer. He's one of those guys that you can basically find him on every MMA picture ever taken ever. He's worked with some of the biggest names around the world, some of the biggest fighters around the world. He's helped in some of the best camps around the world. He was somebody that if you were in the MMA sphere, you would definitely know. So a lot of people seem to have been touched by him one way or another and seem to have been, there's been a very big outpouring of support for him and his family now that he's passed. So it was a result of COVID. So please, people take that somewhat seriously. RIP to him, man. He was a great contributor, and hopefully him and his family can rest in peace now.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace.
Absolutely. Rest in peace to him for sure.
You got anything else?
That'll be it.
Ending on that really high note, bud.
Yeah. Next time, you know, now that I really look at it, not a lot of fun news there. Yeah. Not a lot of fun things there.
No worries.
We'll brighten it up next week.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, whoever's watching, listening, thank you so much. We love you guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like this video. That's going to help us out so much. Nothing else is going to help us out more than that. And if you're listening to this on the audio version on a podcast app, go ahead and subscribe again so that you guys never miss an episode. Once again, we love you guys. Gentlemen, any parting shots?
I think that's about it. Definitely subscribe. The subscriptions help us a lot, help us do some different things. So please, if you do listen, think about doing that. It's greatly appreciated on our end.
Yeah. If you guys got anything you want to share with us, definitely make sure you comment on our videos below. You can definitely hit us up at any one of our social media pages and new _ MMA Show. at all the places. And if you guys have any news for us, anything you want me to add to the MMA sphere, you let us know.
Awesome. All right, boys. Peace.
Later.
See you next week.
Later.